Afternoon. I'd like to call this meeting to order and take roll call. Commissioner Lawson is excused. Commissioner Moore. Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner O'Connor. Here. Commissioner Otatshot. Oh, Tottenshot.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Page.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Johnson?
Yep, here.
And we have a quorum. And I would like to ask.
I think you missed Commissioner Dale.
Oh. David Dell.
Present.
Thank you. Sorry about that, sir. And I would like to have a volunteer to run this meeting. Who would like to volunteer? Any of you?
I'll do it.
Okay, yes, sir. Will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we're going to move to the first item, sir.
Everybody got their agendas pulled up?
Yes.
Excuse me, City Manager Walsh wants to do just a little welcome for you before we get started.
Thank you. Sorry, Dave, we'll give you a hard time first. Make you regret volunteering, right? I just wanted to come up and thank you all, welcome you to the Golf Commission. Thank you for applying. Really appreciate your concern and your interest in our golf course. Our golf course, it is a gem of the city, and really, excuse me, really looking towards you to help us make it as best we can, make it the most of that golf course. It's a shoot. I've been golfing there for quite some time. I'm not a great golfer, but I've been out there. Shoot, growing up, I grew up around the corner from it, so love that place, and really great to see the interest that is here to help improve it and help it be the best that it can. So thank you for that. This commission, it's an advisory commission, and Carl will go into that some more. Basically, you guys will look at these items and make recommendations, and those will be taken to council, and then they'll make those decisions. The course is a municipal course, so it being a municipal course, we have a few challenges. We compete with a lot of other city-funded initiatives, police, fire, and all of those. So, So looking at that, we're currently operating at a deficit. We're about $400,000 in the hole that is basically subsidized by general funds. So that's one thing that obviously coming before you, looking at the improvements that we want to do, excuse me, keeping all of those together. But I will say that the council really has, really wants to see this course succeed, really wants to see it be the gym the gym that it is. I'm sorry, my throat. Which is, really why they created this commission and invited you all to participate. So thank you for being here. I'm excited for you to get to meet Mike and Patrick and Sam. They're great guys, and I think it's neat. You have a Parks and Rec director that was the golf in charge of the golf course there for us. So usually your Parks and Rec director, the way that they lean, you usually see a lot of emphasis on that. So Mike's background, he's got a lot of background in golf, as do Sam and Patrick. So really excited for you guys to be able to get to know them, get to work with them, and really collaborate on all we can do. So again, thank you for taking the time to be part of this commission, and really look forward to seeing what this commission can do. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody have any comments to Tim?
No.
We'll go to the open meeting law presentation by Attorney Cooper.
Hello, I'm Carl Cooper. I'm the city attorney.
I provide this open meeting law training to folks on boards, commissions, and obviously the council. It's just information y'all need to know when you're starting your appointments onto these commissions. So we're going to try and do this every year, so after a while, you're going to really get tired of hearing from me. Some of you may have heard this before if you've been on other commissions. So let's get to the next slide. I have somebody running this for me because I'm a prima donna. So basically, it's the public policy that states that these public bodies shall be conducted openly, and that notices and agendas provide information about those meetings, so that the public has an idea of what's going to be talked about and what's going to go on, so they can decide whether they're going to come and watch in person or through the YouTube channel. And when the law for open meeting law is going to be interpreted by me, it has to be construed in favor of openness for these public meetings, and that's actually in the statute. So next slide. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask, but what might hit some of those questions a little bit later on. So this is a public body, this is a public meeting, everything must be conducted in public. Next. This protects the government, protects the public, preserves the right to participate, and just maintains the integrity of the whole process. Next. As it says, you're the ones that have to comply with the open meeting law. You're defined as a public body as a advisory committee. Next. Or am I doing this? Nope. So a meeting, and I'll probably jump ahead to a few slides, but it's any point in time, 3 or more of you, 4 or more of you gather to discuss business that would be coming before this type of body. So we'll kind of go to the details next. So that could be done in person, or it could be done with these technological means. Emails, so when you get an email, don't ever reply to all, because if you reply to all as part of that commission, you could be creating a quorum, especially if you're stating some point about what's going on with that email or position. Websites, all the social media, if someone goes online, one of you goes online and posts something about, hey, this item's gonna be up on the agenda, and then you go on there and you say, yeah, I like that, I'm gonna support it too, then someone does a like, and you get 4 of you right there doing that, that's an open meeting law violation. And that can happen in any kind of social media context. That can happen if you're talking amongst yourselves. If just 2 of you are talking, then one of you talks to somebody else and another one talks to another person. If it's about this subject, it could be an open meeting law. Now, if all of you show up at a party, you're all golfing, whatever you're doing, you're great, you're fine. Social events are fine, but when you're at a social event, you want to avoid discussing commission business, because otherwise you create an open meeting law violation. Next. We kind of covered splintering the quorum. That could be me talking to one of you, getting information, then talking to another one, getting information, say, yeah, Ottenshot's going to vote this way and Dale's going to vote this way. And if I relay that information or somebody else relays that information, that's called splintering the quorum. Again, open meeting law violation. Next. Public meeting, or the public notice, we have to provide at least 24 hours notice to the public so they're aware of these meetings, so they can show up. There's been times in the past where it's happened, we haven't had the agenda up in time, got to cancel the meeting. We try to do more than 24-hour notice because we want as much public participation as possible. Next. I'm not going to go over all the details, but it basically has to make sure that the specific matters to be discussed and considered or decided at the meeting. So that agenda has to have some specificity to it. If it's not on the agenda, you don't get to talk about it. It shouldn't even be brought up, except in a couple of certain circumstances. Next. I already stated that. Next. So if we have a call to the public, that's a point where someone who wants to stand up, make a presentation to the council, or commission, they have 3 minutes. It generally should be related to the commission's project or the commission's purview. It's not required by state statute, and we can impose reasonable time limits on it. Next. So with that call to the public, the person gets up there and gives a presentation. You don't get to respond unless it's a form of criticism that calls you no good, dirty scoundrels. At the end of the call to the public, you could respond and say, hey, I'm not that person. But generally, if someone criticizes you, my advice is always to ignore it, you get thick skin, because what's gonna happen is if you respond eventually, there's gonna be this dialogue that's gonna happen. That person's gonna yell and shout from the audience, or they're gonna come to the next meeting, make more statements. It gets out of hand pretty quickly. So my best opinion is just let it roll off your back and move on. Don't engage, because you're really not gonna solve the problem that they're having. So with people making these comments, aside from criticism, what you can do if it's something you're interested in, ask the staff to research the topic. They could place it on a future agenda, or as I said earlier, you just sit in silence, no questions. Next. So this is the public's right. They get to attend, listen, videotape, audio tape, but they don't have a right to speak unless it's a public hearing or a call to the public, and they don't have the right to disrupt. Next. So the sanctions for open meeting law violation, it depends on the severity. It could be anything from a monetary penalty to being kicked off the board or commission. What I will say has happened, we've never been sanctioned, but we've had open meeting law violations. What happens is, when I'm aware of it, I get a letter from the Attorney General's office. I say, either no, it wasn't a violation and here's our facts, or you're right, there was a violation. What I've done to fix it is I've gone to the board, the commission, whoever, and give them a brief educational update on what they can and cannot do. That's what the Attorney General is looking for. They want education, they don't want punishment. But if it's something really horrendous, I don't know what that could be. It could be to further consequences. Next. Conflict of interest. So what I have to make sure is everybody understands that conflict of interest isn't a bad thing. It just means you're involved either in a money or ownership interest in something that's coming before this board or commission. Covers everybody, including employees. Let's go with next. So basically it could be if you're family members, immediate family members, spouse, parents, child, that sort of thing, that conflict will kind of tie into that. So if you have a child it's hard to say for this kind of commission, that has this product they want to sell to the city, you would have to abstain from participating in that because you have a conflict of interest. If you have a conflict or you think you have a conflict, call me or some of the folks in my office and we'll sort through the situation, because I really don't know you guys. I don't know what your ownerships are. I don't know what your family relationships are. So I can't guess ahead of time. So call if you have a question and we'll discuss it. It can be a very simple answer. It could be a very convoluted answer. It just kind of depends what the situation is. Next.
Excuse me, Carl.
Yeah.
But one thing you just brought up there is it's got to be done preemptively. We had that situation in the past. You investigated it. You got right to the bottom of it. You actually determined there was not a conflict of interest. We could carry on with the conversation.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you, but the main key to that point is it needs to be preemptively.
Yeah,
We
because
can't determine a conflict of interest after the fact.
Correct, because if you do it ahead of time, you haven't taken the action that could be illegal. If we find out about it later, it could be something that's illegal that you could suffer penalties for, which can go over from misdemeanor to felony level, depending on what it is. So if you have a question, just give me a holler, because we like to sort it out, definitely. And that's what I'm here for. There's a thing called remote interest, and we'll go to the next slide. This is a definition of remote interest, and I'm not going to go through all of them because they're very specific to the individual, what you're doing. Next slide. Again, more remote interest. And basically what that's saying is, okay, you may have a monetary interest, or you may have a pecuniary interest, or proprietary interest, but these are called remote interests, which will kind of kick it out of there. So the one I always use is this one that's listed as J. It says that of a member of a trade, business, occupation, profession, or class of persons consisting of at least 10 members, and it says which is no greater than the interest of any other member of that group. So say like you are, well, Keith's not here, but say an electrician, and you want to, we're not gonna use Keith, but say like one of you guys are an electrician, and you're gonna impose a rule that says all electricians have to pay a $1,000 licensing fee. Because there's more than 10 electricians in the city of Kingman, that interest that you would have would be a remote interest. If there was only 3 electricians, then it would not be a remote interest, and all of a sudden you'd be looking at imposing a $1,000 fee on yourself, and I'm gonna vote no, because I don't wanna impose a $1,000 fee on myself. So that's kind of a very simple explanation of what that is. But again, one of those things are, if you think you have a potential problem, call and we'll sort through it. You can look through these slides just to make sure you can see where you may or may not be covered. Next. These are the statutes. Again, just says call the clerk's office or my office. Next. So this is basic parliamentary procedure. We'll do it really quick. Just basically, it's rules to conduct the meeting. Next. The biggest thing about running a meeting is you're looking at, if you're going to take some kind of action, it's making a motion. So if you want to make a motion, you need to obtain the floor from the chairperson. You make a motion, make sure you speak a very clear, concise motion. Don't be kind of all over the place or double negatives. Just say, hey, I move that we do this. And then we wait for a second. Once you get a second, you get to move to the next step. If you don't get a second, the motion fails. Next slide. So the chairperson, once there's been moved and seconded, you should repeat the content of the motion so that everybody's really aware of what we're doing. If there's any questions, any more debate on it, go for it. And then once you've finished that, you just say, are you ready to vote? You take your vote, and everybody gets to vote, including the chairperson. And the chairperson can make a motion, the chairperson can second. Generally, we kind of wait to make sure somebody else might get the opportunity, but there's a few times where sometimes the chairperson is in a good position to move the debate forward or move the motion forward. Next, I think that's about it. So this is it. Allow motions that are in order, have members obtain the floor properly, speak clearly and concisely, which I'm not doing very well today, and obey the rules of debate. Be courteous. This is a good time to remind everybody, nothing up here should be personal. It shouldn't be personal with them or yourselves. You're here to do business for the city, what's in the best interest of the city. You got the staff making some recommendations. You have your own personal information and knowledge that you guys have. You use that information to make sure what's in the best interest of the city is moving forward. And then I always like to remind everybody, microphones, I constantly turn off to the side. It's kind of a narrow cone, so my voice goes in and out when I do that. Just remember to have that microphone in front of you so everybody can hear you. Any questions? I know I did this pretty quick. No. All right. Well, with that, I'm leaving. Have a good day.
Thank you, Carl.
No questions from the panel. Do we want to start into the consulting report? Is that you, Mike?
No, it's actually Patrick.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to start with this slide here. It's just a little bit about everybody in our department, what we call the golf leadership team. Obviously, Mike Mearsman's our director of Parks and Rec. He's had a lifetime involvement in golf. His father was a golf course superintendent. His kids are golf course superintendents, and so he's been a wealth of knowledge for us. I'm Pat Friend. I've been in the golf industry for 25 years. I got a little bit about me. I got my start in Zanesville, Ohio in the middle of winter. That's not the time to figure out that you want to be in the golf industry. And then I moved back home, went to Valley Vista for a little while, went down to Laughlin Ranch and helped build that, got some construction experience, and then ran that till they filed bankruptcy. And then obviously I spent another 10 years at Valley Vista after that and trying to make something out of nothing. But I've been in the industry 25 years total. The last 7 as a GCSAA Class A superintendent. Sam Hewitt, who's our Class A PGA professional, has been in the industry for 30 plus years almost. 23 as a Class A PGA pro. Pictured there is Alex. He would have been here today so you guys could meet him, but we're punching greens today, and so that was a little bit more important than that. Needed somebody on staff while we're doing that. He's a GCSAA Class C assistant golf course superintendent, and he's been in the industry for 4 years. He's been my assistant for a little under a year. But he's a heck of a guy. Once you guys get to know him, he does an excellent job for us. And then there's Ty Sherwood, who's our PGA apprentice and assistant pro, who's been with us for 3 years. In January of this year, it was recommended that we hire a golf course consultant to come in. We chose Steve McDonald based mostly on his resume. You can see he's been doing it for over 30 years, 488 courses around the country. Some of these listed here that you can see are just some of the top ones that we kind of picked out to throw out so you guys could see where he's been. We try to pick up some like Angel Park in Las Vegas, Pine Valley Golf Club, I'm sure everybody knows where that's at. Stream Song, Shinecock, you name it, 5 of the Trump courses. So he's got a vast experience, and he also has a background in chemicals and turf grass. So that was one of our main reasons for choosing him. He did a site visit on 1/6. Obviously, the entire course was looked at with multiple areas focused on. You can see there we've got them all listed. Greens, tees, fairways, bunkers, our trees, the 16 approach, driving range tee, some back to desert areas, and then also current irrigation. And we'll kind of break those down as we go through this. A little bit about our growing environment and some of the challenges we have that we discussed with him. We run a cool season grass, but we're in what they consider a transition zone. That means that really in the summer, we're almost too hot for cool season grass, but in the winter, we're too cold for warm season grass, and we don't have the budget to overseed. So it's really tough where we're at. This elevation is really hard to grow cool season grass. Not to mention that Kingman really only has 2 seasons, if you think about it, hot and cold. And obviously the best time to grow grass is spring and fall. And so we've got very short windows on both ends. And then our soil quality, horrific is about the best word you could use. Extremely low in organic matter, dries out quickly, requires frequent irrigation. It's also worth noting that 2024 was the driest summer on record. We actually broke a 100-year-old record in Kingman for lack of rainfall. And then it's, for me, just important, like I said, my assistant Alex has been with me less than a year. And so through the hottest summer on record so far, I was training a new assistant, an irrigation tech, a chem tech, and a new groundskeeper all at the same time. Greens, we'll just start with the most important, obviously. So everything like our current aerification, fertilization, all of our soil and tissue samples, all dating all the way back to 2007, were all reviewed. He really had no suggested changes to the current cultural programs. And then obviously the main area of our concern was the weed that's on the green, the southern brass button. Current irrigation system, it's 50 years old, so what are we gonna do with that? And then the failing drainage tiles, so the water just sits around the greens when we do water. So our current herbicide.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Sure.
The current working environment that we have now, the schedule that we have for punching, doing all these things, was any of that in place prior to you coming on as greenskeeper? Or is this your program we're now going with?
It's a program that Mike started and I've just built on, essentially. But yeah, all the irrigation practices, the fertilization.
Within reason on the calendar based on weather. I mean, I understand all that. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Just like I could touch on that too. It's a real challenge here for not just golf, in our parks as well. It's challenging to get the cultural practices done. And like Pat's saying, the windows on both ends of hot and cold are so small. So you want to get a lot of those done when the growing environment is really good, and it's really challenging. And we face that trouble at the parks as well. Like everybody's using the areas heavily when it is those perfect growing conditions. In the spring, everybody wants to get out and play golf, and we have to tear up the greens aerifying, and so it's a challenge. But and not just for here, it's for every golf course basically faces that kind of stuff. So,
But you didn't radically have to change anything once you came on board as to what your culture and practices were prior to that?
no, not really. I mean, they were doing a lot of the similar stuff and really, I would say I learned from some of the stuff that they were doing when I got here, and I think Patrick probably learned too. You're constantly learning in this business. If you're not, you're falling far behind. So there's just a lot of good stuff going on in this industry too. So,
Thank you.
So to continue, we reviewed the current herbicide plan that we're using. I know I have it at the bottom of the slide, but it's important to note that we were able to identify that it was southern brass button, but there's nothing on the market labeled to cure it. Nothing, no herbicide on the planet. And so we were using low levels of herbicides that we thought may work. They were doing okay, but obviously we were losing the battle. So that's part of the reason we brought him in. So some suggestions he had, he actually turned us on to a different product that they use. I'm sure if any of you guys have played, you've seen it. It's working for sure. I've got some slides in here and then also my superintendent report that will really highlight those. But then, like Mike said, you know, we're constant learning. Light thatching followed by top dressing. You know, it used to be the old practice. You didn't top dress greens unless you were punching holes in them. It was just, you just didn't do that. And now research in the golf industry shows that if you're light verticutting and light sanding, helps break down your thatch layers. So they're not so spongy, they're not so wet all the time. And so for us, we don't have that equipment currently, and we've requested that in fiscal year. So I don't know if that'll be approved or not. Here's one of the slides you can see on the far left there. That's a up close picture of the southern brass button mixed in with the mint grass. You can see that it grows lower than mint grass, so that was one of the reasons we were having such a hard time attacking it. The middle picture is just kind of an overview of a spot of it. And then after 2 applications, the picture on the right is the southern brass button dying out from the herbicide that was recommended. And like I said, I've got a bunch more pictures in my report we'll look at too.
One quick thing about southern brass buttons, it's a reasonably new weed, and basically the definition of a weed is a plant out of place, and that plant was brought to our country from another country. I don't know exactly which country, I have it in my notes somewhere, but from Sweden or some other place. Because of its low growing profile, it was brought for a landscape plant. And so it's gotten to be where it's contaminated greens, a lot of greens, mostly in the Southwest, but like I said, it was brought here as a landscape plant, and then it's gotten transferred to other places, so it's kind of a challenge.
Part of the challenge with it too is when we verticut, it's almost like POA. It drops a seed, and so every time we're out there trying to eliminate it, it's just multiplying, and it's also airborne. So that's been real difficult.
Patrick, really quick
Yeah.
question on that. So obviously we're putting the herbicide down. Once that kills that weed, is there a bare spot or what happens after the weeds, you know, discolored, goes away, gone, killed, whatever we do to get it rectified? Is there bare spots that then we have to go back through and kind of address that issue? Or is it something that we're hoping that the bent just kind of takes over that area?
So we're real hopeful that the bin will take over. Some of the larger areas, like the bottom deck on 17, where it was really thick, or chipping green, where it was really bad, then we're coming back. And right now we're aerifying and putting that sand down, but as we move forward, there might be some areas that, yeah, we might need to top dress them to make sure that we're staying level. You know, we don't want our bent grass growing down into holes, and, you know, we want to keep as true of a surface as we can.
And
All
if
right.
I could, the challenge with like what we basically have done, Patrick and his team have really done a really good job of basically wiping it out, I would say, from the guidance that we got from his consultant. If you look at it right now, and the challenge of doing it right now is the bent grass isn't even growing very good right now, because the challenges we have, like Patrick said, about warm season grasses don't do well here, and the challenges with our area is the cool season grasses, it gets cold enough in Kingman in the winter that the cold season grasses go dormant too. So the bent grass is still dormant, and once it starts taking off, and the aerification is going to help, and once it starts taking off, I'm very confident that the bent grass is going to, and the great thing about bent grass, wherever you verticut it and slice it, another plant comes up, because it's a stoloniferous grass. In other words, it grows above the ground, and wherever you slice that, another plant will come up, so.
All right, moving on to the tees. It was identified right away after leaving 1 and 2 that our tees are definitely undersized for the amount of rounds that we have. Our tee boxes should probably be 6 to 8 times the size that they are, and that's what he was saying. And so, you know, what can we do to make that better right now? Move our markers more often, better divot filling plan, throw some fertilizer on it, try to get it growing as quick as we can. Biggest thing was really moving the tee markers, trying to keep it in fresh areas. The addition of family tees too with the USGA Tee It Forward program. We put a new tee on 2 and 7 this year. That just helps us speed of play on busy days for those families of 4 that have never played golf before. We're going to recommend, let's tee it forward and have a better time. Some of the ladies enjoy it. They've made comments that they can't wait to get on them. And then families, we're looking for return customers. And so if they're out there having a good time or maybe making a birdie, they'll come back.
Hey, Patrick, one thing on the tees.
Yep.
His recommendation was 100 to 120 rounds. Realistically, can't you reach that in 2 days?
Sometimes we
Okay.
reach that in
I
one.
just-
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so for you, that's not realistic to move the tees every day.
Not especially. Right now we're at 4, sometimes 5, depending on what we've got going on the tee sheet on the weekend.
Thank you.
I got another question for you on the tees. One of the things that was in the study was the like leveling of the tees and doing the laser and all that, everything else. Did we do that on holes 2 and 7 for the new tee boxes, or did we just kind of dump dirt and spread it out? Because to me, it looks like, especially on hole 2, if you're sitting at the tee looking down the right side, it's got to be 6-7 inches from right to left with a slope and stuff. And even when they were putting sod, playing a lot last couple of weeks, it looks like they're just taking it like right over holes and impressions and everything else. So did that get done, or did you guys, what leveling practices did you use on those 2 tees and going forward to fix any of that?
So it's a process that he recommended, but it's not something that we necessarily even have the equipment in-house to do.
Makes
The
sense.
2 tee boxes that were built, yeah, they were just pretty much dirt. They were topped with sand. Most of it for us is because of the limited amount of crew, trying to get everything done that we're trying to get done. And so for us, a lot of times, unfortunately, it's the quickest way.
And
But
like
not
Patrick said,
necessarily the right way.
yeah, we don't have laser leveling equipment right now, so,
Right.
yeah.
No, I mean, there's definitely like, you could put a string on it and you tell it's not level. And so there's obviously an issue with unlevel tees. We all play, we all know that. We're making new tees and we can't even seem to do the simplest things. And I don't want to sit here and have a gripe session or anything like that. I just want to, because it looks like we're not solving an issue that was addressed in this in January, making new tees, and we're just dumping dirt and leveling it out. I understand, I read somewhere we're down a person with you guys and staffing and everything else, but it seemed like we could have taken an extra hour. I mean, I could have went out there with a shovel and probably leveled it out better. It looked like on 2 with a string. And it just seems like we're creating that issue still going forward versus trying to fix an issue with new tee boxes. Now, I can guarantee it probably, I won't play that tee box, so it's not an issue with me there, but it seems like it's an issue going forward that we're not even looking at trying to rectify the way those 2 tee boxes were done. And I understand if it's, time-wise where you don't have the staffing or equipment, but it seems like there could have been just a little bit more attention given to those and made it a little bit better than what they were.
So as far as 2 on the top, we haven't even put anything on it yet. And what I'm planning on doing with that is the cores that we're pulling off the greens now, that'll be one of the areas that we put them in. And we'll put them in at 4-inch thick, and then we roll them.
Wasn't 7
And
sodded?
so 7 was sodded, and 7 will be rolled, and it'll also be top dressed before it's open, so, to gain some of that. But I do agree, and I'm not making excuses, my team should perform whether I'm there or not, but that was all done at a time that I was not at work. I came back in and it was leveled. I even sent guys back over there to peel sod and go back in for that very reason. But you're right, you can drive by it and see it. And so there's gonna be a lot of rolling and leveling, no doubt. All right, moving on to fairways. The biggest thing he recognized on the day that we were there, too much cart traffic for what we have going on our yardage, poor irrigation coverage. That goes back to the outdated system. Our compacted soils, low in organic matter. Tree roots are shallow and invasive, especially in T-tops. I've got a bunch of pictures that I'll probably be bringing to the next one for you guys to see. He suggested 3 different line patterns, as you probably saw in the report that we turned in. We didn't really go down that road because we can't keep our people behind one of the lines. And so we're never gonna keep them behind 3 different ones. I know we've asked for some extra revenue too, this coming fiscal to put rangers on staff, and that'll hopefully help with that issue too. And then he just said, basically we were kind of putting a mix of grass out there, trying to get anything to grow that we could in the different soils, because they're not all the same. And he basically recommended just buying an expensive certified perennial ryegrass and going with that and seeing if we could make it. So that's what we've been doing. And then obviously continue aerification and spiking practices. That's partially on me. Last year, again, you're training a bunch of people. I didn't get out. I didn't spike the fairways like we should have. We got a little fungus. It wiped them out. Took forever for the spots to come back. So, you know, live and learn.
Can I comment or ask you
Absolutely.
a question?
Sure.
Can't we have more roped off areas when you do plant new grass so that the carts aren't constantly going through there?
It is a constant battle. We try to rotate them as much as we can and rope off everything that we can. Stakes and ropes don't keep carts out. I can tell you that. We pick them up almost every day. And so the more that we have out there, the more I'm designating somebody going around doing nothing but that. But I agree, it's bad. It's a bad issue with the cart traffic. And so I think even upcoming on our future agenda, we're hopefully going to discuss that as well. Maybe get some advice and some help. And
Yeah, it's a challenge when you put them up and they off, you take them down to mow, so that's another challenge too, to find bodies to do that. But you're right, traffic out of the trouble areas, they're a challenge like that. But we'll put them out there and the next day they'll be run over, but like that. It does happen, but you continue to try it, let's see, you know. And he's done quite a bit more since the consultant. He's been out there, he's been putting a lot more ropes out.
Yes.
Another thing on the fairways, we discussed composting with him. In fact, we went out and got a sample of the compost that the city of Kingman produces. I let him look at it. We sent a sample into the lab. We let him review the data. He recommends if we screen it, it'll help with our organic matter, as long as it's screened fine. And then he recommended aerifying it in. Not something I ever thought about. That way it's not just sitting on top. You know, we're aerifying it, we're processing cores, we're dragging it into the holes. So obviously on our fairways, roughs, areas like that.
Is that still the processed stuff from the sewer plant?
Yes. Cart damage to fairways, some of the issues that we have there, multiple players want the single ride. In fact, everybody I know wants the single ride. 90-degree crossover rule, you know, we put signage up, we try to encourage them in the pro shop. Again, we just don't have the personnel to enforce it. Parking on the white lines, turning, you know, everybody pulls up right to that white line and cranks the wheel all in the same spot. And so that creates damage, so we're constantly trying to move those white lines. Not utilizing the cart pass around the greens at all. And then something to consider with all of our carts and the private carts, you know, we got 120 plus carts out there beating that place down now compared to back in the 90s when we didn't. And then obviously we're open year round. A lot of, you know, the higher end golf courses, if you want to put it that way, are closed for a day for maintenance. That's why, so that you can get things done. When you're open year round and you're having to prep the course or try to do projects with a limited crew, it can be really tough. And then we covered players running over stakes, ropes, signs.
So really quick, going back to your carts where you're talking about everybody wants to ride in a single cart. Are you taking that into consideration as far as who has private carts? Where they pay a fee to drive that cart, and are you guys as a golf course expecting for me to go in that doesn't do that to pay you guys for a green fee and a cart fee to ride with that person? Or are you talking single carts where we go out and play and we each get our own cart from the clubhouse?
Yeah, a lot of times with our carts, the fleet carts, we'll see a foursome, you know, and everybody wants a single ride. And so rather than trying to double up, which Sam's and his staff have been trying to promote a lot more now.
Okay.
You know, let's get two people in a cart if we can.
That's what I was kind of wondering if it was more Sam policing that and enforcing that or not enforcing it at that point.
Really, I don't want to blame COVID for everything, but that's part of the thing with COVID. When it came, I mean, everybody's on their own cart and everybody got used to that and they're like, wow, I take my own cart every time.
No,
So we end up with,
And rightfully so,
Yeah.
right? And I get that. We all played golf during COVID and all went that way, but you know, it's beating
There
that
needs
dead
to-
horse, right? And it's just, and I understand Sam and Ty and everybody's busy in that shop and they can't always see what goes on, but they're also assigning carts and stuff. And if you got 4 guys check in and at 4 different times, they need to do their due diligence to kind of control that a little bit too, there.
Todd brought up something interesting, though, on that extra seat for cart owners. We need to revisit that at some point, and if there's a motive on the city side to say, we'd like to have less carts out there, there also needs to be a motive on the city side to say, then maybe we're not gonna charge as much for that guy to ride in a private cart. Something to, not today, something to think about, put it in your back burner, but that's draconian and it's broken. Back to carts and what Pat just said. Friday, hole 9. Lady has got her right front tire on the back of the green. I said, what is wrong with you? She thought I said, how are you? She said, I'm looking for a flat place to park. I'm standing below 9 green. I said, this is the spot. I tell you that to tell you this. We got 7 bodies here that can influence 36 people immediately. Our own groups. Get off the line. There's shade in the cement. Don't park on the fringe. You have curbs because you've earned them. Agree? Agree?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great. People leading by example. I mean, even our own.
That's all we
people, I mean,
got.
Right. All we can do is lead by
Sam,
example.
hit
Right.
us up Friday. Is there any way you can commingle? No, we had to find some we couldn't. But he hit us up. That's where it started. Rangers. We've got to have marshaling.
Yeah.
I'm not a marshal. I don't have the temperament to talk that lady off the edge of the green because she obviously wasn't getting what I was saying. But do you realize what she went through to park that cart there?
The other point to that is you've got the handicap carts out there, and we see them inches away from the green parked. Isn't there some kind of a 30-yard distance or something for them to park? That's ridiculous. It's cutting into the tire tracks right around the green.
So at previous courses I've worked at, we've actually come up with handicap rules so that if somebody shows up and said that I need a flag, we would hand them a paper copy of what the rules were. And it included things not parking on the fringe, not parking on the green, don't drive between the green and the bunkers, things of that nature. And so if that's something the commission is interested in pursuing.
That's one of the things we'll likely agendize and discuss in more in detail is like the rules of the golf course, along with a master plan, all these different things. We'll have meetings set that we'll be talking about that in a lot more detail. And then those rules would be reviewed by you guys and then we would take it back to council. So.
Yeah, I would just interject, and I certainly am not here to cut off the discussion. I think it's all good points, but as a point of order, I think we've moved away from the report, and we really need to bring it back to the report. So.
Absolutely. So as you can see here, just a couple examples of some of the cart damage, people pulling up. I took a picture right there at the no cart sign where we were slit seeding, trying to get some new growth in. They parked right there, and then obviously, there's 6 carts on the left. You can see the damage just from those carts to the fairways. Here's another example. This actually happened on the morning of a tournament. We got a little bit of fungus. Next thing you know, everybody's driving everywhere, and this is what it turns into. Bunkers and green surrounds. Bunkers continue to edge back to original size and add sand back in where we can. He recommended combining some of the smaller, like pot-style bunkers into one large bunker where we're going to keep them. It's easier to maintain. You're not spinning the sand out of them all the time. Flat bottoms and grass slopes. With the flat bottoms, it keeps the wind out of them most of the time because we try to taper the edge just a hair. Not trying to keep sand pushed up on a wall. Cut out some of the bad turf and sod back in as we can. Green surrounds, he recommended the same thing, overseed with a certified perennial rye. We don't have the equipment to do that either at this point, and so we've asked for that in the fiscal year budget request for next year. Trees, sore subject with a lot. Many trees across the course have been identified as either a safety hazard or have outlived their lifespan. Multiple T complexes, the root pictures I was talking about earlier that I could bring to my next presentation, shows them in the T-tops, roots this big around, they're getting mowed off, they're damaging equipment, they're breaking main lines, we're constantly fixing pipes that are 50 years old. Some of the areas that were identified was 8 green, there's 2 pine trees on the back and that shades that green all the time. We didn't take them out, but it was recommended that we did. Obviously, the 18 in the middle was identified as a safety hazard because of the shallow rooting. That actually grew up as a tree sucker. It was never planted. And so he recommended we take that down before it falls and hurts somebody. 10 green, the big tree on the left-hand side, he recommended we take that down because of the root invasion into the green. It's busted the cart path up. We need to tear all that out and redo it now. And then he basically recommended that all the elms on the golf course need to go. And one thing that I would like to add that I'll kind of touch on later is since this has happened, we've hired an arborist to come in. He's gonna GPS locate all of our trees and give us a second opinion on all these before we continue cutting anything down at all, so.
Is that in addition to this report?
Yeah, in fact, we just had one of his guys out this past week inventorying, so he's gonna do a lot of things for us. He's gonna recommend based on tree, how to prune it, what time of year, how much canopy to take, what not to do, which is a big thing for us. We sent a guy out and he just trimmed it up, you know, and so we need to get back to where if we're gonna keep trees, let's keep, you know, we need to keep them healthy, so. Since 2007, we've taken 18 trees out. That includes any of them that I've taken out in the time that I've been there, and we've planted 165. And we're talking about adding a tree nursery around the 1T area. In fact, I just got a line last week on 300 saplings to be able to put in. And so then at some point down the road, a few years, we'll be able to pluck our own trees. As this arborist says that needs to go, we'll dig the stump out and we'll have a tree that we can locate right in there. And then here's the West Coast Arborists Incorporated. They were hired mid-March. Like I said, they'll do a full tree inventory for us. They'll GPS locate, which will come on a map. And so I could pull it up on my computer and basically look at everything in red needs to go in the next 1 to 3 years, everything in blue, et cetera, et cetera. So that'll be real nice for us. And then obviously it'll be prioritized on the health of the tree. It'll get a score. If it's like a 0 to 1, then that means it's gotta go. Age, shallow rooting, canopy size, and spacing will all be considered. The only problem with having trees on a golf course, I say, is they get overhead water every day. They don't get deep water, and so they're shallow rooted. And, you know, if we could do something to start to modify that as we go in and, you know, put drainage pipes and run irrigation down to the bottom to help them push down instead of out, that'll help us too. And then obviously they'll provide a list of recommended tree removal or replacements for us.
What was the cost of this report from Scott McDonald?
So actually that was wrapped into Parks. I got kind of lucky. So Parks is doing a full inventory of all their trees. And Mike said, well, they're here, let's just wrap the golf course into it. And so.
So what did you end up paying for that?
For the tree report for the whole park?
For this one?
Oh, for this one, this was like $4,000, I think, for some reason. We're talking about the consultant to the golf course report?
The
Yeah.
turf grass.
Yeah,
Oh,
that
$4
was,
grand?
yeah.
That was a bargain.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so too. I mean, it was- for what all we got and all the quality of courses, you look what he's been to. Pine Valley is the #1 ranked golf course in the world. He does that. He does all the good ones that we talked about, all the good ones even in the Vegas area. So, I mean, he's very,
So
very
you're
knowledgeable.
on this, the tree only one, that's gonna be all inclusive, all parks, all rec, golf course.
So
Right, all of them.
not moving forward, it won't be. We'll have some costs associated in our budget moving forward.
But the initial one that we've started, they've gone around, documented every tree we got in the city that comes under the Parks and Recreation Department, what we're responsible for. And the golf course is obviously in the Parks and Recreation Department, so we included all those in the initial identifying where they're at and GPS locating where they're at. And it's really a good thing. I mean, they show you exactly what tree it is, what kind of tree it is. And like he said, there's gonna be recommendations on the health and care of them. And
Is he making recommendations for your nursery, what to plant,
He is.
so we don't go through this again?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, in fact, I'm getting the saplings through them. Yeah, they're the ones that were able to find the saplings, so.
Perfect.
The next slide, you can see just some different, these are some of the pictures I was telling you about. You know, root infiltration in the turf areas is costly. You can see the picture on the far right, that's off of a willow tree that's actually been mowed 5 or 6 times. And if it's one of those that's close enough to the base, if we rip it out, there's a good chance we're gonna lose a tree over it. So, you know, now we gotta go back in, try to cover these up, and you end up with these mounds everywhere. And so that's another reason we wanted to bring them in and say, you know, what are we doing with this? What do we need to do with this? And they'll identify each one for us. And they'll also address any issues that we have.
Those are interesting, and if you ever get out, when you get out there and play next time, when you're by number 4T, you look at the trees are on the opposite side of the cart path of the T, and there's roots like that right up on the T, on number 4T, so those are across the concrete cart path and still up there. So it's just really challenging. A lot of trees have been planted over the years too close to Ts, and that's the reason for the weak areas of the Ts and challenging to keep them nice.
That middle picture actually is 4 tee box. That's the tee box he's talking about. Hole 16, new approach. When Steve was visiting with us, we were still in kind of the construction mode. We just described him what we were doing, what our plan was with it. He thought it was a great idea to speed up play. It's obviously still a very challenging hole for your average public golfer. When we were working on it, I would say 99% of the people that came through absolutely loved the idea. They did not like looking for their ball down in that canyon and having to take relief and do a drop and all that. And so we're kind of excited about that. We did all that work in-house. And then we're creating a new back to desert area. I'll get to a map here in a little bit to show you some of the areas that we've identified to go back to desert between 16 green and 18 tee box. We went in and pulled the sod, and that's where we gained the sod for some of these tees. And we're gonna let that go back to desert. We're gonna take some century plants off of 5 that don't need to be there and put them in there, plant some of these trees he's talking about, and really protect those people on 18 tee box from people hitting off of 16. And then we talked about on 16, and I'll get to a map next, possibly expanding the grass areas a little bit. It is a very narrow hole, which makes it hard, and so there's a couple areas identified. Sprinklers are already there, 180'd. You know, we could add some decent soil, maybe 360 those, and just get our roughs and our fairways a little wider, give some more landing area. And then obviously we want to add, like I said, trees and rocks back into the desert areas. That kind of gives you an idea of what we were looking to do in the very beginning. And you can see here on the left and the right are the areas that we were talking about where your sprinklers are 180 now. We could possibly 360 those and add a little grass. Driving range tee. So the biggest tee that's undersized that we have is our driving range tee. Our driving range tee, he recommended 10 times what it is for the amount of divots that we're taking. That's not a possible thing. I mean, people are hitting over the nets now with the technology and new golf clubs. So the only place we got to go is forward or up. So what we did is we looked at a better divot filling routine. So as we're out filling those tee boxes a little more often with divot mix, trying to get my guys on the weekends out on the range to get those all leveled out. Obviously we have an issue with gophers, not just on the range everywhere, but trying to keep up on those and step it up a little bit on the range. The range is an area for gophers that kind of gets let go because there's always somebody hitting at you. And so we're really trying to step that up on the days that we're closed down for mowing. And then he suggested 3 different areas. It's something that we're still kind of talking about. The biggest one for us that we put in this coming fiscal for approval would be to add an artificial turf strip to the back of it. That would help significantly, especially in the winter. Not only could people hit balls during frost delays, but now they're not tearing really anything up. We're not tearing all those divots up that aren't growing because our cool season grass is dormant. So we're hopeful that that'll go through. Some back to desert areas, obviously anywhere that we can cut water that doesn't really see a golf ball. Water conservation is huge, so we've gone through and identified a bunch of areas.
Patrick?
Yeah.
If I can interrupt.
Sure.
The artificial turf strip, what would be the cost for that?
It's $18,000.
Okay.
And that includes the concrete underneath it.
Okay.
And that would come with reversible mats. As most people are right-handed, not everybody, but most people are. And so as we start to wear, we can pull those mats and move them so we get dual use out of them.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. It's important to note before we move on, though, that, you know, just because we're taking sod out and putting desert back in, we still have to maintain it. It still grows weeds. It's still got a maintenance cost to it. Here's the map that we were talking about. I'll give you guys a couple minutes to kind of look at that. Some back to desert from 2007 to 2005, most recently, like I said, next to 18, and then areas that we've identified for the future. Mike kind of mentioned a golf course master plan. I think that this should probably fall into that somewhere. We really need to identify these areas, and this is what we're gonna do. I can tell you in the area that we did on between 16 green and 18 tee box, we saved 500 gallons a minute just in that one little area. So that's, for me, that's huge. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, water conservation is very important, not just here, like all over the country, basically. Water conservation has been a big push. And we've had this map for quite a few years, and we've been obviously working toward it, but there's heavy costs to maintaining desert areas too. And I think we have to find some cost-effective ways to maintain the desert areas, I think is a real push for us to try to figure out.
Obviously, we discussed irrigation, current irrigation practices, runtime audits. You know, he suggested every spring we go through and walk every single sprinkler, make sure they're all turning, what needs to be leveled, do they have the proper nozzling, things that we're pretty much doing now. But again, when you're training a new assistant irrigator, it kind of got to the wayside last year, but we picked that back up this spring. You know, we were concerned about moving some drain tiles, possibly getting these USGA greens. You know, all the drains have failed, and that's why they're always so wet. Something else to keep in mind on the greens, that we're watering 3 different heights of turf with 1 sprinkler. And so that's part of the reason you'll find wet areas and dry areas around those. You're trying to keep your greens somewhat dry and playable. Well, then your long grass around that, you know, it needs more water, and so what do you end up doing? You end up overwatering your greens a hair. So it's a fine balance, and so we were hoping he could kind of help dial that in for us too. One of the things he recommended, we have a moisture meter, was using it a little more often. Daytime syringing, just cooling that turf canopy when it's super hot. We run what's called a 7515 on a radio, so it's just a 5-minute syringe that walks up the fairway. I'm sure everybody here has probably seen that before. And then obviously he said the same thing, get the grass out, get back to desert. And then he recommended, ironically, that we hire an irrigation consultant. And actually we had brought one in December prior to him being there. So it was good to hear that, you know, he was concerned enough that we're going down the same road, so.
It's interesting, the irrigation consultant kind of laughed at me a little bit because I call the newer holes new irrigation, and that's from the early 90s. And so even our new irrigation is pretty much outdated. I hate to say it, but it's still new to us. And we're talking about the interior holes, which are very challenging because those are all in a block system where like there's sometimes 7 or 8 sprinklers that come on with 1 valve. And so it's really hard to get those areas, a wet area or dry area. The only way you can really do it is by nozzling the sprinklers down. So, and Patrick and his team have done a really good job of that too, so.
So we'll move on to the irrigation consultant. We brought him in December, David Yoshimura. He's a guy that I've worked for or worked with in the past. You can see some of the places that he's done locally, and some of the architects that he's worked for. He really knows his stuff.
Patrick, hang on just 1 second. Back to the original report. There were a couple things. Where are we at on these mats that he referenced?
For the range?
The track mats for soil stabilization
Oh, yeah, okay.
that he recommended. Did that come across your radar? Did that?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's something, again, you know, as we move forward, we're
Okay,
asking.
so his recommendation is something you feel like adopting?
I mean, I think it's definitely worth looking into. I don't know if that specific product would work for us, but I know there are products out there that would.
Okay. Then he also referenced that top dresser from Toro. Do we have a top dresser now?
I do not have that style of top dresser as a problem. So the top dresser I have now rolls off the back, and when you close the gate all the way, it still puts about that much sand on the greens.
Rather than
the spinning type. So
what do you say that top dresser is going to cost?
It's in the, he got it in the budget, I think, budgeted for.
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
it. I put it in for next year's fiscal,
How much?
27.
Yeah, and that's for light and
That's a
frequent
lot cheaper than
applications, yeah.
Toro told me they cost. Toro told me they're 27 for just the tractor and 35, 38 for tractor and trailer.
So that doesn't include the workman that would go on. The workman's almost 48. And here's another
I
thing to
called
think
on that
about while you're
Friday.
pondering that. I ordered a brand new greens mower over a year ago, and I still don't have it.
So he saw the top dresser that you're currently working with, and that's when this recommendation was made. And that's why. He's saying you need to get off of this, you're laying too much product, you need to get to the whirlybird.
So what we're doing is we're verticutting right now, like once a week in the summertime when we're growing to promote that bent. We don't have a top, we're not putting any sand back down like we should be.
Back to the mats. Have you got a map of where you would put mats?
Not yet, but it's something we could create.
And that stuff's not cheap either.
No, it's not. It's kind of like lining a bunker. It's not cheap.
$348 for 3 by 24. 3 by 24 don't cover much. Carry on, sorry, but they were mentioned in here, and I thought we should discuss them because they were referred, right? He made a point to mention it.
Yes, and also, what we'll be doing, each of you will get an opportunity as we get farther into the meeting to tell us things that you think we should be concentrating on and agendizing and things like that. So that's kind of what our, what we have planned as we go forward.
So moving on to the consultant visit from the irrigation side. Here's a bunch of things that were expressed by Golf's leadership team. The biggest thing that people don't realize is we do not control our own incoming pressures. So basically for the inner loop, which is the most of what we were concentrating on, we have 3 sources. They all come from a residential line. And so at any given time, I could have 80 PSI or 150 PSI. So what happens is when you start irrigating at night, all those pressures drop. Obviously, the age of the current system, it's constantly failing. I've been woke up twice in the last week at 10 o'clock at night because the main lines are leaking. Last night included, yeah. Obviously, like Mike said, most of the inner loop is on a block system. We can't control the pressure to the heads. Some of them have 10 heads, some of them have 8 heads. It's just been kind of willy-nilly. There's no actual plan as to this is the turf that we want to irrigate. Ponds aren't currently being utilized for irrigation system, so we just pump water into them to hopefully catch a golf ball, which is not okay, in my opinion. So what we're looking to do, possibly, if we're able to move forward with some sort of a renovation, is utilize the current ponds, pump out them with a pump system, like most golf courses in the world, basically. Not too many of them are left on gravity feed, and this is the reason why. You start building more homes around, you start losing pressure, it's a snowball. And then obviously our water window at night is too long in the summertime. To irrigate the lava loop 16, 17, 18 in the range takes me just as long in the summer as it does the entire inner loop. You know, that if you had a pump system, we would be done in 3 hours. So then you don't have sprinklers coming on early evening when people are finishing their rounds. You're not running sprinklers late in the morning when people are trying to tee off. And then, like I said, there was no master plan on the irrigation system, just kind of kept getting added on. You know, it's not growing grass, let's throw a sprinkler in. And then obviously, we wanted some design costs and recommendations for our current system and to get away from 4 different systems. Like I said, the whole golf course is pulled from a residential line, but essentially we have 4 different systems.
And no means of retention or no reservoir.
No reservoir. And so that was one of the things that we were recommending discussion on. And then
back
it's
to a landlocked situation or using what you've got, right?
Yeah. And then obviously we had a parks, open space trail and recreation master plan done a few years ago, and this irrigation system was one of the things that was identified even back then. So the recommendations from him, number one, full irrigation renovation, including the pump system with a lake, so that we've got a reservoir, you've got some holding capacity, you're controlling your own destiny at that point. And then eliminating unneeded turf and utilizing water where it's needed now. So for example, the 500 gallons a minute we're saving between 16 and 18, I can now put that somewhere else on the golf course, like T-tops that need it, you know, areas that are visited by our players. In the report that he turned in, he kind of broke it down to 3. As we moved through the budget process, we kind of broke it into 4. Obviously, it's very, very expensive to renovate irrigation system, even on 10 holes. But phase 1 was get the design done. We've requested that in fiscal year's budget cycle for 26. I don't know if that'll get approved again, but hopefully. Then obviously we'll have to go through, as part of our master plan, identify those areas that'll go back to desert, because if we're gonna renovate, there's no reason to run irrigation to them, other than drips if we wanna put trees in. Obtain the bids for lake design and pump station design, which I pretty much have, and then a bid for the power drop, which I'm still working on now. So that would basically be year 1. Year 2 would be to design the lake and get it installed, along with the pump system and the wet well. We need to get the power run, and then he thinks that we could temporarily install cross-connect lines and low ramp our pumps enough for a year to be able to basically start irrigating out of the lake with our current pipes. I'll be honest with you, I've been down that road and it scares me. It really does, because if you don't have pressure reducing valves in the right spots, you're gonna be fixing more pipes that way. And so that's the bridge that if we get to, we'll have to cross. And then obviously we could divert our incoming water that we don't regulate now into our lakes. And so we pull from the lake at night and then we replenish it during the day.
Where does the water come from on 7 or 6?
What's that?
Where's the water come from on 6?
It comes off the mainline system off of hole 3.
Would that be considered culinary water?
Yeah.
No well feeds that.
On number 6?
No, there is a well there.
On there that it's a shallow pump, basically, right? And with that,
What I say it does, basically pumps the water that's going through the liner system that's in that and just pumps it back up in there. So there is a small pump that's there, but it's a very small pump.
But it is
It's a well.
culinary water that we're maintaining in that.
Yeah.
Phase 3 would be the actual renovation of the inner loops. That would include new pipe, what they call maxi wire, and all new sprinklers, new laterals, the whole 9. Then we would add stub outs as we go for adding the outer holes the following year, because we can bore underground and tile those in. Like Mike said, the newer holes that are in the 90s. And then honestly, with the way technology is now, I've always been a Toro guy. I openly admit that. But Rainbird's got the market cornered right now. So if we were to renovate tomorrow, we'd be putting a Rainbird irrigation system in. Just the field use, it eliminates satellites. There's no more big ugly boxes anywhere. If we have a gopher chew on a wire, it eliminates it to 30 feet for us. We're not out tracing wires all day. And just the control system itself at night, moisture meters, it regulates all that for you automatically, where Toro's just kind of falling behind the ball on that. And then phase 4 for us would be the tie-in of the stub outs to include the outer holes. And then we would have to do a light renovation on those, is kind of what we had planned, so that we could add that maxi wire, get all that system online. And at that point, we would basically have one irrigation system.
Okay, what was the cost of this study?
That was 4,000.
And what was the cost of the other study?
48, yeah.
4,800,
Yeah,
48,000?
4,800. It's not over $5,000, they won't let me spend it.
Turns it into a capital expense. Tina's head explodes.
So anyway, what will irrigation renovation do for us? We can control the pressure to each sprinkler, eliminate the block system, and that eliminates a lot of the wet, dry spots that you see out there. There won't be too many heads coming on at once anymore, which creates low pressure. You get donut effect. We would be able to utilize our lake water for irrigation instead of it just sitting. And we would eliminate the issue with the greenheads watering 3 different types. You would have what they call backups. Some of the newer courses, if you've played, they have 2 sets of sprinklers on a green. One is solely just for the green height, and the backup is for everything else. Longevity. So with the new HDPE pipes that are out there now, they've got systems that he's predicting 50 to 75 years before they have to renovate again. It's not old PVC like we're trying to repair and keep in the ground now. Would help eliminate all the current pipe breaks, and also with the pump station, it has a flow sensor, so if we do get a mainline break in the middle of the night, it automatically shuts off. And so now we're not pumping water out that hole until I can get a guy there, or until I can get out of bed and get dressed and get over there and turn it down, or turn it off. And then obviously gaining the latest technology for irrigation control. Like I said, it eliminates the field satellites, narrows down breaks. Everything is app controlled. In fact, some of the stuff I do on the iPad now is just phenomenal compared to what it was 20 years ago. And most importantly, improve our turf quality. It all starts with water. So it's just important for us to note that any suggested changes that were within reason from both of these consultants were implemented immediately into our daily life. And then we just like for everybody to know that any concerns that are coming to us in the golf course, some of the meetings we had a few months back, they're all taken seriously, and we're addressing everything that we can.
Back to this irrigation report. On these $90,000 to $120,000 are mere design and consulting fees. That is not the project. What do you estimate the project?
$8 million.
$8 million? That's a capital expense.
Mm-hmm.
Pat, I got a couple questions for you, if you
Sure.
don't mind. What are you thinking is like the time frame to get like grassy areas to desert area? Like, what are you thinking there?
I mean, to me, the sooner the better, but it all boils back down to manpower. You know, we can't just go in and turn the sprinklers off and let the grass die. And,
Right.
you know, there's a process. So, you know, being able to build 16 and move that sod and utilize it around the course, that's huge. You know, I want to do that anywhere we can. Anything that's left, we're putting behind the range. We let it compost so we can use it in the future.
Okay. And then you brought up like other courses taking like closing for a day to give the turf a break, allow you guys to get out and do projects. Have you guys talked about doing something like that, or maybe like a cart path only day, like find the day that's not like the least amount of traffic and just going and doing a cart path only so that way the turf has some time to rebound?
So when I first started at Surbat, we tried cart path only days, and it works really great until they get to hole 3, because you can't see them anymore. And then it works really great, but then you got holes like 9, 11, we don't have a cart path.
Right.
You know, so we got to try to keep them on the maintenance roads or the dirt paths. They're all things worth considering for sure.
Okay. And then my last question, what are, obviously tournament season's coming. About, I think every weekend is going to be a tournament here shortly. What's kind of the plan to prepare for that?
I mean, really for us, it's nothing we can do. I mean, they want to have the tournament. We want to raise funds for partners in the community, and we just put the extra play out. You know, I said it when I first got there. I don't know that it's necessarily that way, but when I first started, one of the very first recommendations I was trying to do was to eliminate 100% of the tournaments. It's not something that's feasible. You know, we need to continue our relationship with these people that we're raising funds for, and they're different charities. But they are getting more and more and more, and the more of them we have, the more wear and tear we have.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else, anybody?
I'd like to just comment that short of receiving, we haven't yet, and we will down the road, the golf course's master plan. It's a challenge for us to look at a lot of this. But when I do, and I read the report and I listen to the report and I see your photos, I think a lot of it goes back to, I think what all of us have alluded to is there needs to be more structure, I believe, on the course. Certainly echo a lot of the stuff that you've said. We talk about court painting areas off and roping areas off, and that's all fine and well, but it only works until we have a ranger out there to help us facilitate some of that.
Yeah.
You know, I would struggle to say elimination of any of the tournaments and or even closing down for a day, because as we've already heard, we operate in a deficit of 400, so that,
Yeah.
that compounds that. And from a elected official's position, I'm sure they're not gonna be agreeable to that.
Right.
So I think for us, with things we'll look at, and there'll be a lot of different ideas, we'll look at improving the play, starts with looking at the strategic plan and or the golf course's master plan, so that we have an idea of what we're really looking at. But, you know, there's a lot of ideas that have been put forth as a result of that report, and I think that we'll be able to implement a number of those, but it will certainly take us having some structure to do that. And I don't know that structure's there, and I'm certainly not saying that as a knock at you or any of the other staff that's here. Like, we used to see rangers regularly, you know, for those of us that have played the course or lived there for a long time. You know, I go back to even the arborists. I think those that know, when we did this, or whenever I've tried to do this, we try to make emotionless decisions, and we support a lot of that. And I would commend you guys for the reports you've gotten, because we've seen the tree trimmings that have gone on when we had the prison crews there and some of the other stuff, and I don't know that did us any favors, because it made them extremely top-heavy, and as a result of that, we've seen them come down. So it's nice to see that we have some presentations that we can actually make some good decisions on, but we also need to put some of that structure back into the course. And I know that's a process, I know it's a fiscal process, and I know that requires us to budget and have the support of the council. So I'm excited to see where we might be able to go, but the consultant report, I think, is very beneficial to us, and it will give us some ideas on how we can move forward. So I wanted to commend you guys for that, but saying that, there will be a number of things that we're gonna say, hey, we wanna see some of that move forward.
We're also, real quick, just so you know, we plan on bringing Steve back every year.
Yeah, that's,
So,
Just really quick, a lot of the stuff can be addressed and stuff by having a ranger out there, right? As far as like carts and stuff like that. Is that a paid position? Is that a volunteer position? Because I know in the past, if I remember right, it's always been kind of a volunteer position. Is that correct?
so currently it is. It's volunteers, and like any other thing that people volunteer for, some do really great and some don't. Some do really great for a month and that's it.
Well, they have to be vocal, right? They have to enforce the rules and the laws or whatever you want to do. And a lot of people just want to come out and go, oh, well, and I don't know, being in the industry for a while and stuff, it seems like volunteers always got the opportunity to have free golf, stuff like that. And a lot of people use that as a crutch just to do that and get in a cart and drive around for 4 hours, 6 hours a day and not care, right?
Yeah.
So it's finding that right person out there that's going to be vocal and actually enforce the rules and deal with the lady on 9 that Dale addressed and stuff as well. But I just wanted to know if it was still volunteer or not.
It is, and this coming fiscal, we put in for 2 positions for ranger. Again, I don't know where that's gonna end up.
It's easier to enforce it when it's paid and have
Absolutely.
them enforce that voice versus.
Absolutely, and Sam and I kind of feel the same way. We don't really want our volunteers getting beaten up, you know, it's tough. Golfers are tough. Everybody knows that. You guys golf, you're tough
yeah,
sometimes.
I will echo, I think that Sam, I certainly won't speak for him, but I think it goes back to some of that structure. Like, I think post-COVID, we've been very lax, and I'm certainly not here to have somebody polish my clubs and, you know, put them in my car and any of that stuff.
Right.
That really creeps me out personally, but I think we have to put back some of that structure back out into the course. And I commend for what you guys are trying to do, because I think when we do that, that'll fix some of those. You know, it took us a process to kind of get to where we are, and it's gonna take us a process to get back. And,
Absolutely.
you know, frankly, you know, we saw more rounds played on that course than I've ever seen in my life,
Yeah,
right? But post that, you know, we need to go back to putting some of that back together, so.
absolutely.
Yeah, during that time of COVID, what I said is every day was like our busiest day while Vegas courses were closed and California courses were closed. Every day was like the busiest day of the year,
Yeah,
so.
I mean,
was-
when I looked out the window, it looked like the Desert Shuffler tournament every day.
Right.
Yeah,
Right? People waiting on every hole, and I was like, oh my gosh. So,
absolutely. All right, well, thank
Any
you.
other questions for Pat? Hey, thank you. Thanks very much. You did a very good job. That was excellent. Answered a lot of questions. I know you got hit with a barrage. I appreciate your efforts. And again, we've got 7 guys that can influence 36, that can thank a helper out there and can keep the cart on the path. And
Yeah.
we have a communication issue. So the trees come down and we're freaking out. So I don't know if we need to put something in the clubhouse that we have a communication issue there, where the Joe Blow guy coming in there all of a sudden shows up to 3, and the shade tree that he's always enjoyed is now no longer there. It's never explained to them why it's not there. It's just not there. 7, the minute Pat told me on my visit down there why 7 was gone, man, that made all the sense in the world. Can you imagine sitting there in a cart taking a tree to the back of the head? There's a liability issue there we can't even get Carl to fix, right? So a lot of this is going to be what we can communicate to the golfers there. Those that complain the most know the least of how things work, correct?
Yes, and what I would say, we've addressed that, we feel, but we've started to address it really good, I think, is by, for one thing, the commissioners are gonna get a report every week of what we did last week, what we're doing this week, and so we're getting that information, and now we're taking all that information and we're posting it on the board in the pro shop as well for the public to look at, and so, I think we've addressed it and we're working toward that, so.
The weekly activity report is going in the pro shop? Excellent, because it is a good document. Please continue.
Is that something you can put on the Facebook page as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Good.
Well, I think I can expand. I spoke with both Mike and Pat about the report. Communication, I said, was a issue.
Right.
I mean, they both heard from me when we were cutting trees down because I was hearing from other people. I also think that this commission will have the ability to influence some of that and then put some more of that information out there. Hopefully that will, and I'll also say that I'm not in favor of some of the report. So it's nice to see that we're gonna get a second opinion on some of that stuff because, as I said this, and I'm not throwing Mike under the bus, I said if the trees have lived past their life cycle, what are we doing to fix that, right? This is a predictable surprise. This is something that we can, if we remove the motion from it, we can really drill down into and say, yeah, if we're gonna remove these trees, then we need to plant new trees to replace them because some of those trees were put there not for shade, but for other purposes, such as shading people who watch holes for us in those tournaments and/or things of that nature. And so they everybody involved has been very receptive on our end, or at least on my end, for to improve on that communication side, which I certainly appreciate. Doesn't mean I like the answers every time, but nobody will, and that's why there's 7 of us up here, right? So it's a diverse group, and I think that we can move some of that in their favor. So.
I agree with that. I found more agreement with Mike than I found disagreement on that site visit because it allowed Mike to explain what he's doing and why. Yeah. And some of it was not even his decision. Pat, again, thank you very much. We got no other questions? We're not going to do minutes since we have none. So the next item would be call to the public. Do we have anybody that would like to speak?
No, sir, we have no one signed up today.
Next action item would be election of chair, vice chair. Discuss any motions,
Any discussion?
I don't have any discussion.
Well, we'll need it's obvious we're gonna need a chair and a vice chair, so somebody, and she's over there nodding, but yes.
Bill, you've been doing a good job. I nominate you for chair, right?
I second.
Good.
Shall we vote? Unless anybody's got any other motion?
No, that's where you call for the vote now.
Vote.
Let's vote. Call for a vote, please.
All in favor?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Yes,
All
we
in
say
favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
Who's interested in the vice? I can work with all you.
Yeah, I'll
I like all y'all.
I nominate Pat Moore.
I second.
I second that.
yeah, thanks.
All in favor? Pat Moore for
Aye.
vice?
Aye.
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 Done and done.
Any nays?
Any nays?
Other than Pat.
Sean, he's not here. Item B under action, potential items for discussion of future meetings, golf course master plan, car traffic control, golf course rules. Want to take them one at a time. Is this basically the compilation of the next agenda?
I wouldn't say necessarily the next agenda. I think that's obviously an important one too, but for future meetings and stuff like that, just, I thought it would be a good idea to just kind of hear what each commission member thought, what they wanted to address kind of things.
Yeah, I would, if I could interject, I think that all of us have ideas on what we wanted to fix, right? And I've given Mike a list of, and I'll share that here, is we want to see a copy of the plan, but, you know, we've identified some issues, and we've also identified a number of things. I think that for us, the range, we've talked about the range, we've talked about improvements we'd like to see done there. Some of them are not expensive, some of them may require there to be some funding approved. I think all of us have talked about different ideas such as a replay rate. Is our rate where we want it to be? I've heard people throughout the cart, you know, the cart riders. I think these are all topics that obviously you're not gonna put all of them out there, else we'd have an agenda 900 pages long. But I think that collectively as the 7 of us, there should be something there that we want to see. You know, the tree report, is there something out there for the sand traps? Is there something out there that people want to see fixed on the tee boxes? So those would be appropriate for us to throw out there for future meetings as far as what do we want to see done as a group. And I've thrown a few of those out there. You know, I think we pick a couple of them and certainly open to everybody else's suggestions.
Well stated, and something that kind of triggered with me is, yeah, since we're brand new and we've been 10 years in absence, we need to kind of pick big items and go after them and then drill down. Because we cannot do anything not addressing problems and addressing people instead of problems. And we need to do the master plan items starting large, taking big bites, then drill down into the minutia. There are a lot of problems. I think we would agree. I think you would agree. There are a lot of problems. We need to bite those off that are largest first.
I think one thing I would like to see on a sooner agenda than later would obviously be the master plan for everything. And then I think once we see that, it kind of breaks it down a little bit more. I think a lot of the issues that are out there right now have been addressed on this report, and, you know, how they got prioritized or whatever, we're working towards those. You guys are making, you know, some changes to that. You know, so that it's kind of beating a dead horse to talk about the greens, right? I mean, until, you know, we're working on that. You guys have started some processes there, but I think for me, one of the biggest things I'd like to see first would be the overall master plan.
And that's something that is going to be a pretty substantial cost. So we'll have to find out what that is, get some prices on it, and then see what it is, and have you guys discuss it, obviously, and we'll agendize it first, and you'll discuss it, and then we could see what all we want added onto it, but we'd have to get a consultant that does that.
Well, do you guys
sorry,
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but do you have kind of like an idea in your head of what you kind of want to see or what that may be versus having a consultant come in that we could kind of do a presentation on?
I mean, we have ideas of stuff, and we shared that kind of in the group, and we don't want to reroute the golf course, but we had other items in there at that time that we thought are important, kind of, but like adding to the back of number 1 green, making that a little longer, and some decent pin placements and stuff like that. Things that we can do in-house with, like we built the additional putting green. We did that with aerifying plugs, so we can do areas like that with that kind of stuff. So that's all stuff we could put on there. But really, if you're going to have a really good master plan, it's going to take a golf course architect or somebody like that to come in and give you some really good information, really.
Do we currently operate the golf course with a guide, a 12, 24, 36-month guide or strategic plan or something that says we want to see, and I'm just asking, you know, are you provided a document that says we want to see the number of rounds go up, for the sake of the argument, 5% every year? We want to see this get reduced, or we want to see our rates get... Are you given a document like that kind of guides the decisions that are made, or?
Not really, but what I would say we've always done in my time here, we've tried to take the budget that we're given and give the best product we can give with the budget that we're having, and try to keep rates still affordable in Kingman, because the consultant that we had, when he came to look at our golf course, he said this golf course is as good as any $60 or $70 golf course that he's seen. Well, our rates aren't $60 or $70 around, and we've always strived to get as good as we can with, and keep it affordable still. So that's kind of what we've strived to do, and it's something obviously that if we're gonna to put a new irrigation system in and come up with $6 or $8 million, I don't know exactly where that's gonna come from, and our finance director just left the room, so but she's, we're obviously talked about all these big items that are very expensive, so, but those are all items that are, to have the rates we have and keep it affordable. And the other thing of it is, we're at $400,000 from breaking even right now, and what I said, we had it closer at one time, we had it like pretty close to 100,000 several years ago, and the primary difference is now, we have been putting more money into the golf course. You know, we've gotten carts, we've gotten equipment, more equipment than we ever had before. So fairway mowers, light fairway mowers that are better than they were. So all that's added in there, and so that's kind of why we're farther away from breaking even than we were.
So for future discussion, could we see some of the historicals? And I'm not looking for specific numbers, but like 5 years ago, we had this many rounds, and this year, in comparison to what some of the staff is, because that's really the only way that I would know to be able to evaluate that is, you know, obviously in the fire service world, we had data that we compared it to, and I would most likely believe that the data that you would present now shows there's more golf, more players, more expenses, and more requirements, but there's not a lot of more funding or budget that goes with that, and so, I mean, that would help us maybe be able to grasp why there's some of the pitfalls that have already been identified. That doesn't mean they're going to get fixed, right? But that would give us the ability to make better informed, emotionless decisions.
I think you're right. We do have that information, obviously, which we've been working several months now on the budget, so we've gone over all that stuff with the city manager and the finance director, so we have been working hard on all that stuff of lately, so we do have that. And like I said, we've put in to get paid rangers and things like that, and you know, there's been complaints about the beverage carts not being out there enough. Well, all that takes more labor, you know, so I mean, we've talked about all that, and we're looking at all that too, so we can supply some good information, I think.
Yeah, I would say then for me, I would like to see some of that data at our next meeting where we can look at what that entails, but then, you know, and we would want to have inputs from all of you as to why, you know, because I think that we all have an idea of why we're here, right? There was a golf course commission previously, and it went away, and now we're back, and so for us to get a full understanding of what currently we're operating with versus what we might have been, and I throw that because, and I don't think we have anybody that's out of line, but, you know, that might help people understand that I'm going to go in there and I'm going to ask for, I'm being theatrical, I'm going to ask for whatever when we can't afford that, right?
No.
Whatever that is. Because even as a new council commission member, we're always tasked with, well, what, I've already heard this, what you guys got to do next is you got to, whatever that is, right? Like, and it's not feasible, it's not practical, and it's not realistic. And so for us to make good decisions, I think we'd have to know where it is that we've been and where we want to be, and then can we get there? And so I would like to see some of that data, historical data, and then we can start to pick off, and I've already said to you, I'd like to see a number of different things that we could look at to try to fix, repair, and or make better.
One of the things that, and I don't know, this is informational seeking for me, but, and it may be because it's a city, you know, municipal course, but you look at like Havasu, and it's a private course, I get that, but they have somebody, and I'm not going to mention a name, but they sponsor their practice facility, and they provide range balls with them and stuff like that. Is that an option that we could possibly look at to help cover some of the cost of the mats and like supplying good golf balls? I mean, that's, you know, there's, you know, pretty regular churn of golf balls, and you know, so we're not hitting rocks and damaging clubs and whatever, you know. Is that an option, or is it because we are a city municipal that's not an option to have like a sponsorship of a practice facility or something like that?
That might be a Carl Cooper.
No, that's definitely an option. We can do that, obviously, but it has to be approved by council.
Absolutely.
We get donations, we have to take it to council and get their
Absolutely.
approval. And we would take it to this commission first, is what we would do. And, but we're always open to those kinds of things.
Yeah, I just didn't know if that was an option or not being.
Donations are, but they just have to be approved, so.
hold
Yeah, and
that
I
for
would-
1 minute. Let's carry on, but then next I want to kind of work around the horn, doing exactly what Mike was talking about, just kind of everybody expressing why they're here, what they want to see obtained. Carry on, Pat. The floor is yours. Finish your
No,
thought.
I'm actually not trying to hog the whole thing, but
No.
I think that, to Todd's point, I think you make that a discussion item, the
Yeah.
improvements to the range, right? And that covers that umbrella for us, and I think that this is what it's gonna take, is for us to throw those ideas out there and then to start to pick them off. I don't wanna see us put 15 items out there. I also don't wanna say to anybody, hey, Brendan, we don't wanna listen to him or Todd or anybody else, right? I mean, I throw those out there because I can pick on those guys, but I think that those are all viable, and I think that we just have to start picking on those pieces of the course, but
Where that was relevant is what you just said to Mike. If we're discussing something that is not financially viable, let's table it because it's not an option. He just made that maybe it's an option.
Yeah,
So
no,
what he brought up is a great point.
yeah, and I know, I mean, what he's talked about has been discussed, I think, at least in our area several times, and I think that that's something that we should very well look at. I don't know what that looks like, but I know who you're referring to, and I know that.
And it may
how
not be
the
that
city park
person.
Works is, it most likely got the RFP because we went through some of that with some of the other process, but it's all viable. That being said, I've thrown out more than probably suggestions that I want to, and I certainly don't want to hog it all, so I'll be happy to listen to everybody else.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is it goes back to, I think, the driving range. It's the first thing people see. You know, like when you get here, when you get to the course, like you immediately go to the driving range. And I took the tour with Mike as well. It was great. And I'm with you. Like you learn so much on that meeting, like that tour and riding with Mike and hearing his plans. The going back to the desert area, I think, is a great idea. I think there's just too much grass. If you think of 4 and 5, or there's so many bailout areas that puts people at risk. So if you put it like a desert area, it makes it a little more safe. Obviously, people are gonna hook it, but so those are my things that get me here. Yeah.
I want it to feel that we're involved in those decisions, where not having a commission made it look like Mike was a renegade out redesigning the golf course, doing wild things with or without Pat's blessing. I want us to be in that decision-making process for the reasons Mike can give us, to include, number one, I'm a water guy. So you come to me with water savings, what we've already done with dry wells, what we're going to continue to do, stuff I want to put on the agenda. Water, 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 all of those things are easily explained to your fellow golfers. Carry on. Take the floor, Carol.
My concern is having a good time coming out and playing golf. And we have an issue with, it's been brought up before, I understand, the walls on 10 and 18 in front of the green. If you, especially 10, if you have a low trajectory ball, you're going to hit that wall. And you've got good golfers and you have high handicappers, low handicappers. It's still an issue with, it's not a design thing that should be done. And if you want to correct it at this point, I suggest that you might want to remove some of the wall for the front approach to that green and put signs up. I understand it was for keeping carts out. Put signs up, but at least give a golfer a chance to get there without having that obstacle in its way.
Just so you know, we didn't meet before this and discuss that. I brought that up with Mr. Mearsman on my site visit. I had a 7-year-old hit into that and almost murder his 5-year-old younger brother during junior golf. Mike discussed that. Again, Mike, I think, adequately explained why it's there. Because he caught a cart up there, and I'm with Miss O'Connor. It needs to go. We need to do something different there, but I think it's a safety hazard. I think that Of all the things that you've done, that's probably the one that I've got the hardest feeling about because I witnessed that, and it was traumatic for the parents who didn't golf. I was the adult in the room. I was in charge of that group of junior golfers. It disturbed me that I didn't have her take her ball back, or that she the parent knew that the ball needed to be taken back, et cetera. But that is a problem. But again, I'm taking full ownership as a golfer. Yeah, we've earned that wall because we don't know where to drive around the greens. Anything else?
That's it for now.
Thank you. I'm just a golfer and an amateur one at that, so most of this makes my eyes glaze over, to be honest with you. I appreciate all the work that goes into it, Mike and Pat, but I do know the difference between a good lie and a not so good lie, and that's mainly my concern. I think objectively, and I'm not placing blame on anyone, but the condition of the course has declined over the last probably 6 years since I've been playing it regularly. Not entirely my fault. That was a joke. But just some things I think we could probably discuss in future meetings are considering increasing fees for out-of-town players. I know many courses have two-tiered fee structure, so that's something maybe we could look at doing. Maybe closing the front nine or the back nine, having people play the front nine twice during portions of the week when traffic is lighter. I know cart path only is difficult to enforce. That might be negated if we have the rangers. Also, maybe during the week, having days where you don't allow carts to go out and make people walk. I could probably use it, and I'm sure there are other people in Kingman that could as well. I don't know what that would go over, but something to consider in my opinion. Also, because I think we qualify as maybe an economically challenged community in some respects, but we do have a junior golf program. Has there been any exploration of grant funding or any other nonprofit organizations that provide funding for golf courses based on youth golf programs? Is that anything that's been looked at in the past or could be looked at in the future? Those are the only things that I have for consideration at this time. Thank you.
That was a lot to chew on. I like that. There was good things there. Am I allowed under law to give a handout out?
I believe so, yeah, to your fellow commission members.
Pass them around, make sure Cherish gets one too, please. Hey, while we're on that subject, are you
Make
our
sure Sherry
liaison?
gets one for the minutes.
Miss Cherish, are you gonna be our liaison? Do you know who is?
Keith Walker is.
Keith's gonna be the liaison? I think that you were vital in getting this commission going, and you are appreciated for doing that. Please note that. I'll take any of the remnants left over. When I was here in 15, it seemed like all we could do was fight about the contract. And just for historical, and I'm done talking about it, but historically, we had a contract where the contracted pro received 90% of the money that came across the cash register, and the city received 10. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mike.
I don't have those exact numbers right on my mind, but there was a
90-10.
yeah,
I have them in my mind. I have the contract at home. I read it this morning. Yeah. So we ask ourselves, how did we get here? So part of the way we got here is we gave someone with zero responsibility for the condition of the course, the condition of the carts, the fuel for the carts, anything. He had no financial responsibility. The city bared all of that. Correct? That was on the city. Well, the city can't do maintenance without equipment. The city can't do maintenance without fuel. The city can't do maintenance without employees, and all of the money, the 90%, was going to the contractor. Meanwhile, while we were fighting about the contract, I'm so done talking about that contract. Meanwhile, while I was on the vice chair prior, we needed carts then. Remember that? Before the COVID carts came into existence. At that same time, the Val Vista POA was looking at doing carts. So I got in contact with them and vice versa, worked with a guy. We got in contact with a company, Yamaha dealership down to Sun City, I believe. And I put a proposal together at that time. This is the result of that. I would like you to read that. I don't want to go through all of it. It's very well done. I did probably 190 hours worth of work outside of my normal job to get this going.
Yeah, I think we're getting a little bit outside of,
No,
Well,
but
I mean,
I
so I
want,
think we should try to-
part of my 5-year plan thing is carts. So that's where this is coming from. So that's, your point of order is taken, but that's how I'm tying it back in. We need carts at Surbat Cliffs. They need to be, in my opinion, leased. In my opinion, they need to be electric. Back to what Brendan just said regarding grants. We talked about that. There are grants available for municipalities to put in solar power that can run the cart barn, the kitchen, and the solar charger, and the chargers. So I typed this up. Please read that, see what you think. But that is something that I want to see this commission do going forward, is look at replacing the fleet of carts, no longer being cart owners, being leasees of carts, getting out of taking your employees from the shop and working on golf carts when they should be working on golf course maintenance equipment, getting rid of gas, opening up that area, no longer handling gas, and looking at that as a feasibility, getting away from purchasing a capital asset, looking at a monthly lease fee. I think it makes sense. I would like to see going forward, as maybe part of the weekly activity report, maybe not. I'd like to see the financials. Back to what Commissioner Moore said regarding seeing the numbers, say a historical 5-year window. I'm wildly interested in that. I know we kind of have to toss out some COVID numbers just because they were not normal. But I would definitely like to see that, because with the growth of Kingman and us only having one course, they can only go up exponentially. That means more wear, more tear, all of those things. I want the course rated. We need to get into a pause of construction. If our latest course rating is 2023, that needs to be done. Our scorecards need to be updated, right? The water projects that I just talked about, got a dry well currently between 1 and 9. Anything else we can do on the back, any of the water we can capture off the freeway, all of those things, the aquifer is harmed. I want to carry on with the conversation we already had. I want to talk about the fee structure. I want to know how that's made up. I want to know whose brain it came out of. I want to talk about punch passes. I want to do things that encourage from junior to senior play financially. We're in a city of medium income of about 33,000, and we're fast outpacing ourselves with price. We discussed the measurable metrics, which are going to be part of the 5-year plan or part of the reporting. The involvement of the 7-member commission and decisions made around the golf course, that'll be part of the master plan. And then decisions, anything that we can do, we also want it to be a 2-way communication street. So when you come with Pat's report, et cetera, I hope some of that comes to us in the form of requests. This is what I'd like to do. This is my roadblock. Please help me remove that roadblock, right? Again, can't give enough kudos to that weekly activity report. That is awesome. Please continue that. I had no idea you were posting that. Please continue to post that. Communication, communication, communication. And I would like to annually, at minimum, like Ms. Moline, to explain to me funding. Because you go back through COVID and we got rid of that 90-10 contract, man, there has got to be money out there somewhere. That golf course is packed. That's it. Mr. Rottenshot.
Again, kind of touch base with kind of what you guys oversee as a master plan. Where do you and Pat like to see? And Sam, you know, what do you guys have in mind of the golf course? I know when I wasn't able to take that meeting at the golf course, you know, when you guys had it a couple months back, but you know, expanding number 2, moving different greens and stuff. I mean, it intrigues me, and some of that I think would be good, and some of it, you know, would be fun to play a different golf course and removing grass, stuff like that. You know, makes it difficult. You know, I'm not just a golfer. I play professionally and competitively and stuff, and it's fun to have a difficult golf course versus going up on hole 4 and aiming for 5 tee box and knowing you're in bounds, right? So that's it. You know, what's your guys' vision as far as, you know, that goes? I don't need a study or anything like that, but just kind of where you guys see things that might go. Obviously the rates I agree with a couple people up here where, you know, the out of towners, you know, we go out of town, we have to pay different rates than locals. And I think we really missed the boat on that, you know, not having one set in place with COVID.
If I could jump in just
Absolutely.
quickly, because you guys, a couple of you have said that, and we've got that in the, we've been working on the fees for everything, and now we've got that in there where it'll be we're not going to call it a non-resident fee, we're going to call it a resident discount. So we're going to set our rates here, and then residents will get a discount. So that's kind of what we're recommending to council. So I just want to touch base that we are thinking.
You're good. And then I agree with Mr. Moore, where you don't definitely see in the reports of some financials and whatnot from the last, you know, 5, 6, you know, years, or, you know, if they're available even pre-COVID, right? I mean, obviously they're skewed because of COVID, but, you know, for the first couple of years before COVID, I mean, God, when I worked back at the golf course in the 90s, we were still pushing 100 players a day, you know? So, I mean, some of those numbers can be evaluated, I think, still, you know, pre-COVID versus after. So just those are kind of the 3 biggest things for me would be to look at.
Excellent. Those are all very good. What about you, Mike? What about you and Pat? What do you want to see from this commission? Do you have a vibe for, is your feel that we're intruding? Is your feel that we are going to be a cohesive, cooperative membership going forward? Where are you at?
I don't have a problem with that, with this commission at all. I think it's a good thing to get. What I always say too is, I can't see every square inch of every park or every square inch of the golf course every day. So the more input I can get from other people, I'm always happy with, honestly. So, and that's why, really, I mean, I appreciate you coming out to taking the tour and talking with you and sharing my information with you. And so anybody else that would ever want to come with me for a ride around, and obviously, you forgot to mention that Patrick was a big part of that meeting. He was with us the whole time too. So, you know,
Right.
You know, he's very instrumental, and Sam is. We try to work with our team. We have a lot of talent in this team here. I mean, like Patrick mentioned, how many years he's been in it, how many years Sam's been in it, and I've been in it forever. Like I said, my father was a golf course superintendent. I was worked on the number 3 ranked golf course. My father was at the number 3 ranked golf course in the state of Indiana. That's where I grew up. So, I mean, my kids are at some of the finest country clubs in the country on the East Coast. So, I mean, we have a lot of very talented people in this room. So, I mean, on our team. So, but I'm not threatened by this commission in any way. I think it's good. And I think the information that you want, I'm all open and looking at. And that's kind of how I see it, really.
Do you agree? I don't know how to ask this, I guess, but do you agree that the golfers were not fully represented by just a Parks and Rec Commission?
Well, I don't really agree with that, because really at any of our meetings, I think only one meeting did somebody show up to talk about the golf course. And we had a golfer at least on the commission at all times, a golfer. And we also have a lady that lives on the golf course on our commission that was very instrumental and stuff. But so people just didn't come to talk about the golf course at that commission meeting. And, you know, we welcome them, and when we gave the exact reports that you're getting, we gave those at that commission meeting too. So, you know, we didn't send out the weekly, which I think is a great idea now, which we've talked about. So I think that's helpful. But, you know, I think we're going to give you the information that we have, or the needs that we have, and we'll see where it all goes. That's all we can do, really, is give you the information, take information from you guys, and try to do the best we can.
Appreciate your take. Mr. Pat.
I think it's a great idea personally. I'm looking forward to working with all of you, honestly. I think, I agree with Mike. Yeah, it's my job to see every square inch of the golf course every day, but I don't. You know, we get tied up on main lines and other issues and personnel issues or meetings or whatever it happens to be. And so, yeah, I take criticism as constructive. I would rather have 400 sets of eyeballs out there telling me things that are going wrong or sending me an email. Hey, I was out playing this weekend and I saw this. So, you know, that just more people helping out right now.
Mr. Sam, give us your take on what you want to see in 5 years, and then if we're good with item B, then can we move into the golf, just carry right in and move into the Golf Pro report?
Yes, most definitely.
Is everybody good with that? Have we satisfied item B except
Yeah,
listing?
I think it's a point of order.
We're gonna agendize some stuff at the end. We'll put some things on the agenda, big items, okay? And then, let's hear from you what you'd like to see us get accomplished together, and then go right into your Golf Pro report, please. Thank you, Sam.
Okay, so I guess a 5-year plan, or looking 5 years ahead, as all golf courses grow the game of golf, make the golf course better, make it more financially viable for everyone. And, you know, the pillar of the community, I guess, would be the best way to put it. You know, there's limited options. I come from Houston, limited options in Kingman, you know, compared to other places. And I think that's a good thing for the golf course, and it's a bad thing. One of my biggest hurdles as a golf pro is getting people out there that have never touched a golf club, barely know what end of the club to hold, and they want to play golf on Saturday mornings at 8:30. Well, you know, I don't guess you guys know what the result of that's going to be. So, you know, I've tried to, you know, say, hey, let's think about some range time first. Even though I might be losing a little bit of revenue, I'm probably saving some in the long run. We are getting we had this program a couple of years ago, Golf 101, which is just taking non-golfers and getting them acclimated into golf. That'll start here in about 6 weeks. It's about $100, group lessons. Trying to take the intimidation factor away. So things like that. That's the biggest hurdles. I'm kind of with Pat and Mike. The more eyeballs, the more ears that we hear from, the better off. No one's perfect, so give us your thoughts, your ideas. We'll see what we can do, you know. We've had a good weather year this year, so the rounds have been up. We had a good December, over $100,000, I believe. That's probably not the norm. We had it the last two. Didn't we have a good, pretty warm, so it's not going to continue like that. But when the weather's good, we're good. It's basically how it works. The last 3 months, the rounds and the dollar revenues are, you know, up from the previous year. And you're all right. COVID spiked the golf industry. I was at a course in Houston, the rounds doubled. So I don't think they doubled here, but still it spiked. At some point, it's going to taper off, I would think. And so that's, you know, who's going to take the place of that? Well, we got to get the non-golfers into golf to take the place of that, or at least that's how I look at it. In the 90s, it was easy. You had the Korean vets and the World War II vets. They retired and they played golf. And then golf, you know, curtailed. COVID helped us out, but it's not going to last forever. So, something to look at. The junior golf is real big. It starts June 4th. We have 2 junior sessions. The First one is, again, June 4th. We'll probably have 120 to 140 kids. And that's a start, get the kids interested into golf. I might even, you said you did it before, I might be calling on you, okay?
No worries, I got you.
You got my back, good. You talked about rating the course. We're gonna get the course, we're on schedule to get it re-rated at some point in the next few months by the Arizona Golf Association, so I suspect it'll be sometime in September.
And what's that will probably work out well with kind of figuring out where we're at on separate construction phases, is not starting irrigation yet, or what do you think the associated cost with that to include scorecards is gonna be?
Scorecards, roughly $2,000. I don't know if there's a fee involved, or, yeah, I'm sure there is. It's minimal fee for the rating of the golf course.
Usually done by volunteers, correct?
I'm not sure, but the the Arizona Golf Association gets it done.
Okay, thank you. Carry
One of the things we're gonna do is try and we're looking at getting the website updated. I looked into that several months ago, but we were having so much trouble with our POS system that we were considering getting rid of that company, but they've since straightened their act out, so we'll probably update the website here in the next couple of months, probably right after the Shuffler. This is our tournament season. We have a lot of tournaments coming up. The Search and Rescue Tournament, Kingman Academy, PTO, the Knockouts, the Putters, Rotary Club, Bighorn Scramble. That's just through the end of May. And then, of course, then we have the big one, June 21st and June 22nd. City Leagues, this is our season from now through the Shuffler and then even through October to a degree. Our City League starts the 25th. We moved that to Fridays. It used to be on Wednesdays, 5 o'clock. So I expect to see everyone that
Just because
out there.
I've been asked, why did that get moved?
We just thought we would get better participation. You know, a lot of people take off half days Fridays. They don't have to worry about going to work on Saturdays. So we'll give it a try. We upped the rate last year to $25. We'll keep it at $25 this year as well. That includes green fee, cart fee, everything.
Sam, what do you get in junior golf as far as money back from them?
I'm sorry?
Junior golf.
What
How much revenue do we get with that?
Was it 9,000? Somehow that sticks in my mind.
Yeah, I think so. That's a total, I think, what we took in from it.
Yeah, that's probably right. $60 a kid times 150 kids. Yeah, 9,000. We're changing the procedure up a little bit this year, but it'll be fun. The main thing is no one gets hurt when you have that many kids out on the range, and they're all holding 14 weapons each. So, you know. The golf carts, getting people paired up, that's one of my biggest issues for all the reasons these guys said. And a good reason for me is just we run out of carts. So, especially in the wintertime when there's a frost delay and they don't tee off till 10 o'clock, then the carts aren't making a turn till 1:30 or 2 o'clock. Well, if it's a busy day, then we're in a little bit of trouble. So definitely have to get people carted up. Any questions so far?
I do.
Yeah.
With regard to the pro shop, how much, you've got apparel, you've got hats and whatnot that you're selling. How is that doing, revenue-wise? Because it looks like the apparel sits there for a long time.
It does sit there for longer than I would want. We make about, I believe, $50,000 a year is the number. But yeah, the apparel sits there for a while.
May I suggest, if you might give the people who are members a slight discount, it could move some of that stuff out of there.
Something worth looking into. We can consider that. Our prices are marked relatively low compared to other courses. But we can definitely look at it.
Just to move it.
Yeah, move it, get it going, yeah.
Yeah.
The hats, the shirts and all sit on a lot longer. The caps and all, the impulse buys tend to go.
Yeah.
Sam, how many annual pass golfers do we have? Do you know off the top of your head?
I don't know off the top of my head. I think, don't hold me to this, but I would say 170, 180.
Do you know about how much they bring in?
I would have to get back with you on that.
Okay.
Hey, Sam, a question was posed to me that members, I haven't experienced this yet because I don't use the internet, but members haven't been able to reserve tee times electronically without having to pay for it, and because they're members, they don't want to have to go through that process. Is that something that we can look at?
Yeah, I'll definitely look into that.
Because I know, I brought it up because you said the working on the website, so that's why I threw that back up.
Okay.
Are we on the same point of sale system we had before?
No, this is I'm not sure exactly how many years we've had it, but it is a different one.
Similar in theory, different in vendor application, okay.
Right.
Yeah. Anyone else?
The kids, at least my grandkids and the others I have helped around the course are really happy with you and Ty.
Oh, thank you.
And the junior golf program, so know that you're being appreciated. I know there are days that you'd like to pull out your remaining hair and it's not an option.
I had a full
They
head.
are troublesome. They are troublesome at best. I think more parents, grandparents, as the time becomes available, needs to be down there helping as well. It's not a daycare. We all need to be there with our own kids or grandkids, so. But you are appreciated, and the kids have had nothing but kudos to give to you and Ty. Really like Ty too, so
He's
that's
great. Thank you. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Sam.
Thanks, Sam.
Do you have more to add, Pat?
I got a whole nother report to do.
Okay, let's do it. You get your public speaking merit badge this week. While we're waiting, do you know what the limit is to make something a capital expense? 50?
All right, I'm just gonna kind of blow through this one because, as Todd noted, we kind of beat the greens to death, but I did just kind of want to analyze just a little bit more so that you guys had an idea of what we really did after receiving the report. During the winter months, probably not the best time to do it, but this is what he recommended. We put 8 full laps out at 2-week intervals, 1 pre-emergent and 7 post-emergent herbicides. Obviously, our applications changed after the consultant visit. We talked about that. We definitely saw some noticeable changes after the first recommended app. That's the picture on the left there. You can see the brass button was immediately yellowing out. He recommended we continue apps through late spring, and this obviously changed our cultural practices completely, the way that we do business every day. After 4 apps, I noticed we were just about 100% on the weed being gone. But then after 8 apps, I noticed that it was starting to harm the bent grass. And so instead of continuing those at 2-week intervals and just damaging our bent, I backed off of those completely and we started putting a little fertilizer out instead. Started doing some light verticut and seeing if we couldn't get the bent grass to fill in a little better for us.
Did you share that information with that Mr. McDonald?
Yes, yep. He's been keeping
This is a continuous communication loop with you guys, right?
Yeah, yep. Like I said, immediate plan change. We changed the cultural plan to 2-week fertilization, did some light verticutting, spiked them, and then we're rolling them a little bit more than mowing them, so that we're rolling them out, getting those spots, getting the level back into them. Here's a picture of 3 green just before the commission meeting here, so it's definitely coming back. They're bouncing back. The aerification that we're doing this week will definitely put the icing on the cake. 16 new approach. Again, I know some people didn't support it, but I'm very proud of the work that my guys did in-house. You can see from the pictures here, all the way from the first drainage pipe, all the way to the last piece of sod. We did 100% of that work in-house. All the dirt was harvested in-house. We even got 3 inmates to come out and help us, so that was kind of nice. But obviously it's reducing maintenance down in there. That was a nightmare. We were constantly weed eating or putting herbicide down there. It just turned into a nightmare. So proud of the guys for that one. Quick update on the driving range safety, netting, and pole replacement. This is a 4-year project started in fiscal year 24 and will go through 27. Phases 1 and 2 are complete with the new poles and new netting across the back. Phase 3 and 4 are upcoming, and that'll take care of the rest of the poles and all the netting on the left-hand side. 17 green, that's that fence up there is something that I've been trying to do or redo since I got here. It finally got to the point where there was metal sticking out and people were in danger of getting hit. And so while the fence people were here doing the range, we were able to work it out to get this privacy fence in too.
So the landowner didn't do that as part of that? We paid for that.
Yeah.
Is there any recouping that on the real estate transaction?
No, not really. We just paid for it because we wanted it to look nicer along there and be more safe.
Does look good.
Some bunker renovations we got done over this last winter. We removed the existing sod. We tried to dig out all the tree roots and everything because there are no liners. Put the sod back down and then add some decent sand back in. When I see decent sand, there's no decent sand available in Kingman, Arizona. So we do the best with what we've got. Obviously our goal, as we discussed, grassy slopes with flat bottoms. We were able to get 3, 7, and 11 greenside bunkers completed this winter. And just a few additional items real quick. We're in the process of updating the door on our ball machine at the range. And the new door will include a credit card reader, take tokens, take cash, Apple Pay. And so that has been ordered. In fact, I just signed Carl gave me the approval to sign the contract today. So we'll get that coming and get that installed. Yeah, a couple more. And then part of that, we're having to upgrade the internet wiring inside the clubhouse and the cart facility to facilitate that because it has to have an internet connection. While we're doing that, we're pulling all new Cat 6 wires so that we can upgrade our security cameras and then obviously our speed to the POS system. Spring aerification, like I said, is starting this month. We actually started greens today. We'll follow up with tees and fairways in the next couple weeks. And then I always like to highlight some of the irrigation issues. Since this is a new commission, I just kind of went off of January 1st. Moving forward, it'll be every 60 days. Roughly 60 foot of piping replaced, anywhere from 1.25 to 8 inch. 4 new 2-inch electric valves installed with 5 new valve kits. We replaced 18 sprinklers with 35 repaired. 3 new isolation valves put in so that when we do have a leak, we can isolate smaller areas. 4 sprinklers moved to optimize performance. And as always with these, I like to thank the maintenance crew publicly because without those guys, I'm nothing either. So they kick butt for what we do. So I really do appreciate them. And that's all I got for the report.
Couple things. Where are you at on staff?
I have 9 and 3 part-time. That includes my mechanic, my irrigation tech.
Is that considered full strength?
No, not compared to what it was, but Mike says it best. When I got there, we had inmate labor. He always
Right.
told me don't rely on it. And the first thing I did was start relying on it. But yeah, we're down like 120 man-hours a week, just from inmates.
Do you think he needs more staff?
Yeah, I do, obviously, and he's put in for it too. We've reviewed it with the city manager and finance, and yeah, you could definitely use more, and it's challenging, but we're trying to look at keeping the rates so they're affordable for people in Kingman to play. So, there's challenges and looking at both sides of it, I guess. So, and we've looked at maybe a little more part-time labor too, because like I said, the challenges, we want rangers, we're gonna have to pay them. So, there's just a lot of challenges with that, so.
The $8 million irrigation upgrade, you doing labor, them doing labor?
That's them 100%.
That's all them. That includes purchasing the radios, the iPod, or the iPads, whatever equipment, electronics that goes along with that. That $8 million is done. And that's
in today's market, yeah, who knows what it'll be in 2 or 3 years.
And that's just the interior 10 holes.
No,
That's the whole course.
The 8 million would cover the whole course. The interior 10 is 6 million.
Okay, I didn't clarify that earlier. Any questions for Pat? Boy, we sure appreciate you. We know that, like I said, when you were out to Val Vista, you were MacGyver. You had to do everything with a pocket knife and a piece of string, and you brought that skill set with you, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.
Announcement by commission members. How are we gonna formulate agendas? I would rather us do it than you do it. Does that make sense?
Well, you give us the information, and then we take it and work with it, so that's kind of how it works.
And who's gonna do that? Our recorder is gonna take that information?
She can take what you are recommending that we have on the agenda, so.
So
And
as
w-
part
and if
of
stuff
our
comes up from council,
announcements
as stuff comes up from council, something they want information on, obviously that'll move to the top of what you guys will be looking at too, so.
Absolutely agree with that. That should be the priority. So let's kind of go around the room and make announcements, and if there's something you'd like to see on the agenda.
I'll start with announcements. You guys know what I kind of want to see on the agenda, but I just want to say thank you for you guys' time for today, and for getting this commission kind of going, to get this back, kind of everything on track. I know that we all want the same goal, right? It's just a matter of getting there. And outside public looking in isn't necessarily the always the best, because they don't know what goes on inside the ropes with you guys. So we do appreciate, at least I do appreciate kind of what you guys do, but I mean, and there's definitely some bigger bumps in the road that we need to kind of address, and that by starting the commission and stuff, it's going down that road, and I just want to say appreciate that to you guys, and I know Cherish, you're the only one that's council member here, but appreciate you as well, so.
I echo that. I'd like to add, well, let's go ahead, Pat, you go. And we'll work this way down to me, and then I'll close it out.
All right, do we, our next meeting, do you have that? The date? Yeah, the next meeting.
June 9th.
June 9th? Yeah, I'll echo what Todd said. I appreciate everybody's here. It's nice to see a number of people that were in the audience as well. I think everybody's got the same goal, and, look forward to trying to make things better, so.
Yeah, I will agree. Thank you guys so much. It's a lot of information kind of jam-packed into a couple hours, so really appreciate that. Yeah, that's all I got.
I agree, thank you. Thank you for having us. I like to play golf and have a good pace of play. And when you have a busy day, I would love to see that you put singles and doubles paired up, even though they don't play together, so that it moves along. Because I've seen that happen too often now when you have a full course and you have all one or two people playing by themselves.
Yeah, thank you for putting this together. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate that. I'm grateful to be on this commission. And Patrick, in particular, I want to thank you and your folks out there, because I do see you out there working on it. You have an uphill battle. So I appreciate your work.
Well stated. So for the agenda, I'd like to keep the carts on there, just kind of keeping that moving. That Commissioner Johnson earlier indicated that your driving range is your kind of your first visibility, but I would disagree with that and say it's the carts. It's going to be your counter, how you're treated at that counter, and then you immediately go to that cart and you load up. And the last 2 times, it looks like somebody vomited oatmeal in my little holder. And I'm telling you, it's like the carts are really, really bad, and they are an absolute window into your experience. I want to keep that on the agenda. We discussed about adding these things to the reports, and I think, Mike, you kind of need to just put on there under a general, golf course activity reports, but we're looking at the financials, we're looking at some historicals. Mr. Moore brought up some round rate charts, those types of things. So kind of as a general dustbin for all of it, reports. Then you guys each keep kind of your own track of what report you were looking at, and we can get it more nailed down. I want to put the water projects on the agenda. Just, I'm going to try to, I've got my water meeting coming up, and then I'll try to get with the city engineer, and maybe I can do a little 5-minute gig on what we've got going, what dry wells are, what they do, how they can help with our aquifer and where we're going with that, why they need to be implemented and included into new construction at the golf course, those types of things, and anything that we could possibly do that is water mitigating in design or repair, we need to include that. So water on the agenda would be good. We've had 2 or 3 folks bring up costing and pricing. And I guess I don't know how I would put it on the agenda, but I sure would like the 7 of us have it explained to us how we came to the prices that we're at, how they get decided, whose brain they come from, how they ultimately get voted upon and implemented. So maybe something about costs. Then is there any other measurable metric or anything that you guys are thinking of that you want to see bi-monthly, that anything we're missing? These can be amended as we go, and I want to conduct meetings in an informal, formal manner as possible. So if something crosses your brain in a mid-meeting that says, hey, we need to agendaize that, and we need that 5-year plan to stay on there, let's do that as we go, right? The 5-year plan is on the agenda, correct? We can keep that on there. Anything else that I'm missing? Miss Cherish, anything you'd like to say? Okay. You're just here to referee any fights?
No, she's not allowed. She's not really allowed to talk.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Lost her voice at the Masters. I'm guessing that's all we have, yeah? Motion to adjourn. Let's vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All opposed?
Thank you all.